Hello everybody and welcome to episode 14 of the Clip It podcast. Today is going to be a bit more of a free-form episode as we've got a few topics we're going to just weave in and out of, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Obviously, if any of you there who are watching are into gaming, you are aware that the PlayStation 5 reveal is later on tonight, and I'm thinking of streaming after this, so if we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to be talking over the stream and seeing what's happened and how it goes. Some news for you guys. I know, again, sorry this is delayed by a day, but the podcast will be on the channel tomorrow as always. We may be on Spotify very soon. I'm still looking into this, and I'm quite excited, to be honest, because I like listening to the podcast, make sure everything's right and good, and so I'm just going to keep an eye on that and make sure it works. And lastly, thank you very much for 8k views again. I know it's not much of an achievement for most people, but I've been doing this for 5 years on and off, and that's a hell of an achievement for me, so thank you so much for that. Don't forget, if you want to support the channel, sharing is one of the best things you can do at the moment, so again, I appreciate all of you. As always, we are joined by our wonderful 2 reliable co-hosts, so let's go and meet them now. Hello, you 2 wonderful people.
Oh, we hit 8k.
What's up, bro? 8k?
I know. 8k. Oh, you're not on my Twitter then, fam.
Oh, whoops.
I did see, but I was rolling with Phelan's punches here.
Wow,
Yeah.
fair enough. Yeah, no, it's been I've been stuck at
to stop using the website.
Yeah, no, I've been stuck at 7k for so long. It's a hell of an achievement. So thank you so much.
Oh, correction. I did see it because I recognised the really
Shitty
pixelated.
picture. Yeah.
But
I
I
did that on
didn't read what
purpose.
it was about. I just saw the picture and was like, nah, whatever.
Anyway, yes, we are joined by our wonderful Agent Oink, aka Alfie,
What's up, gamers?
and the also wonderful Delicious, aka Phelan.
The more wonderful.
Okay, the more wonderful.
Ha!
Okay.
Take that, Alfie. No take that.
How are you 2 doing today?
I'm pretty sad,
Yeah,
actually.
I'm
I've just learned that Tactical TV thinks I'm less wonderful than Delicious.
You're both just
real
as
sad.
wonderful. You know who
Oh,
isn't
God.
wonderful? That guy to our right, who is never on the podcast. He's a wonderful guy, isn't he?
He is.
He is
Need to
lovely,
bring back
yeah.
the never on thing or whatever it is.
Yeah, he'll be on soon, but no, it's good to hear you 2 are well. And well, I don't know if this is a bit late to us, but how was your holiday?
Uh,
As you weren't here for the podcast last year. Last
Oh.
year?
There's a blood in the
yeah, I've been on holiday for quite some
I
time.
thought you meant the summer holiday, to be honest. I completely forgot
Oh.
you meant
It was okay. It was nice to have a time away.
bet.
But at the same time, going on holiday during COVID is weird because you kind of you can't go to places as attractions, really, right?
No.
Technically, a lot of them were open at the time, but we very much didn't. I went out to a few cities and such, and just wandered about them, as socially distant and wearing a mask literally 24/7.
Good.
God forbid no one wore a mask in Exeter. Fuck Exeter, the shithole. But
London, London.
it was just kind of. I haven't discussed this with you guys too much, but I guess it'll be interesting to just touch on briefly in the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm Englishing excellent, as you can tell.
Mm.
But the place we stayed was like a little lodge in the woods. Not super easy to navigate, kind of on a large hill, quite hilly to get around and
Yeah.
such. But nice. You're in the woods in a lodge. It's quite nice. But yeah, it did have cracks through about half the entire building, causing the supporting beam in the middle of the house to have buckled by about 3 inches in one direction, which is probably quite concerning.
Yeah.
The brushes that we were given for the balcony repeatedly broke. One of the upstairs heaters sparked every single time you turned it on and off, pretty much, and didn't function at 90% of the temperature settings.
The sparks of the heat.
There were stains all across the thing. It wasn't particularly well cleaned, which is fine in general, and I have nothing against the cleaners because they're probably not paid enough. But during COVID, it's a bit concerning, right?
Yeah.
If their policy on us is saying we're deep cleaning all of our lodges because of COVID, and you get in there and it's yeah, you're not. Our fridge and freezer, this is technically part our mistake, part theirs. Well, our freezer was just like was making constant noise. It was really loud and was clearly like on its last legs. But our fridge, I think you'd both agree, if you get a fridge, right, you presume that you can just put your stuff in it and shut the door, and it'll do fridge things, right?
I
Right.
like cool it, keep it cool, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was turned down to like the lowest setting, and it was one of those like fridges with a tiny freezer box at the top.
Okay.
So it was turned down to the lowest setting. Everything was frozen when we got there, so it must have just been turned down. We put all of our stuff in it, and all the ice in the top freezer box melted and ruined all of our food. And covered it in water and got water all over the floor when we
Yeah.
opened it, because
I've
you know
never
you
heard of a
just
freezer
expect
thing at the top.
a freezer to just or fridge to be like on a decent enough, cool enough setting to keep the freezer box at the top. Anyway, yeah, that happened. The table was like one of those tables that could you expand and pull out, and that would just break, and half of the table would nearly fall, and we nearly like smashed our food trying to pull the table out.
You
on
smashed your food? Fuck, that must have been
Nearly.
frozen.
Nearly, bro. No, I did have to do that at one point because one of the boxes just had like a massive pool of water on it, so I just smashed it on the balcony outside. What else was there? Oh yeah, the oven gloves we had were like broken. There was something else. Something that I'm really remember that I can't remember. Oh yeah, the downstairs fan in the bathroom didn't work. Just general a lot of shit went wrong. Oh yeah, the TV didn't work and the
Oh
internet didn't
no.
work.
So
And by the TV didn't work, it mostly worked for about like 12 hours, and then it would just stop having 90% of the channels. You'd have to rescan. So like you
And you'd
rescan, you get
pay
the
your
channels back, and it's
license.
like fine. But yeah, anyway, the point is we got a 30% refund, and they were very apologetic. So in general, okay, but just like yeah, it was all right.
so
That's my holiday talk.
talking about internet, normally when I go on holiday, it's a paid internet sort of thing. Like you have to pay for like a day's internet. I don't know if yours was like that, but I just
No.
used my
Wouldn't do that in
4G.
today's world.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to use your 4G when you're not on the side of a hill in a forest.
Also that.
Fair. But no, I'm glad you had a wonderful time walking the streets of bumfuck nowhere then, and wearing your mask, which is what most people should do. I recently saw Paul Rudd's video trying to get more people to wear masks, and honestly, he's the god that lives today. He's a wonderful person, Paul Rudd.
Yeah, that's high praise, isn't it?
I love Paul Rudd. He is honestly like I think he's underrated personally. As like an actor, he is an amazing actor, but like just in general, he's a wonderful person. So yeah. Anyway, the thing is now
he's a bloke from Ant-Man.
yes, wonderful person. If you haven't seen the video of him, he did a video. I don't know if it's a full video, but I saw a bit of it on Twitter. If it is, he did a little skit with Seth. I can't remember the guy who does Hot Wings. If anybody knows what that show is.
I do, but I don't know what the guy's name is.
Yeah, he did a video of him, and they're basically just eating hot wings wearing masks, and they're like, masks are cool, guys. It's just a funny bit. Yeah, it's stupid. But what was I going to say? Yeah, what I was just thinking about is a lot of these topics we're going to talk about. Basically, we've gone into a lot of detail on them before, talking about the 30 series, and you know that's interesting. Again, the PS5 a little bit, and like I don't know if anybody else has anything you want to talk about. TTK, that was it. That was the main one we were going to mostly talk about yesterday, because I've been going on a rant, and everybody has, to be honest. Interesting topic that we all have something to say about. I never expected it, but we all do. Is there anything you guys would like to start with, or should we go straight to like I guess TTK, because that was the one we were meant to do yesterday?
I mean, I think. Sorry to interrupt, Phelan. Fuck you. I just think like we should just introduce where we stand. So I am for more variation in TTK in a game, and higher overall TTK. Obviously, with the context of not having a TTK that was like 14 years, because that would be absurd. But you get the point.
Yeah.
Then where are you, Phelan?
All right. I thought we were going to go tactical next for some reason.
Don't worry.
I was going through the Discord list.
Oh, I see. It's one of those things that always happens when orders aren't specified.
Yeah.
I'm not too fussed about the TTK. Like, specifically whether it's shorter or longer. I would play different games with longer and shorter TTKs. I'm not going to go, I won't play it if it's this, or I won't enjoy it as much. but there are definitely some points to be made about TTK.
That's true, and I stick with low
Charlie
TTK.
stands.
I stand with low TTK. I would like to say, as a bit more of a context, I prefer competitive shooters like Counter-Strike and Valorant, where there is basically no TTK. It's either a headshot or
Call of Duty to
you're
an
dead.
extent.
And yeah, Call of Duty, lower TTK. For context, Alfie, like the main game I would say, especially when a TTK counts, is Overwatch. And obviously that definitely fits a higher TTK. If that had like the same
It does
TTK as
have-
COD, then I would be a bit. Like, it wouldn't be the game it is.
It does have instant kills in it, like
Yeah.
you've got Widowmaker and such
Yeah.
forth.
I think
but
you basically have to choose a weapon. I think like the standard assault rifle
it also has like
is a fairly
it has like a very varied TTK, right? And sure,
Mm.
Widow can one-shot characters, but if you average the TTK of like all characters v all characters 1-on-1, you'd definitely be pretty like higher than like CS:GO, right?
Definitely.
Even if you did like all weapons in CS:GO. So,
Yeah.
like yeah, I definitely stand more towards.
I
higher
think
end
it
in
is
that game.
very dependent on the games you're playing. Again, like COD, not COD. I'm gonna go like Valorant would be a completely different game if it had the same TTK as Overwatch. It just wouldn't work, in my
That's
opinion.
what a lot of people were hoping for.
I think
Not
they
necessarily quite
were.
as high as Overwatch, but like I think a lot of people were hoping that the abilities in Valorant would be a bit more impactful. Like, don't get me wrong, they are definitely impactful, right?
Definitely.
But more impactful in the way that like grenades and that are in CS:GO
It's
is the
not-
common comparison, right?
It's not
Mm.
tactical
Versus
changing.
like the major plays that can be made with some abilities in Overwatch, right? Like simple things like Discord orbs in Overwatch can completely turn a team fight if your team is able to work around it well. And whole metas revolve around this sort of stuff. So like, you don't have that same sort of strong influence of the abilities in Valorant. It's more like they slightly help to nudge the meta in different directions, rather than like the meta.
I
And
personally
so
would.
it circles around like fucking Phoenix's new, left
Yeah.
fucking E or whatever the fuck.
I just wanted to say now as well, a bit of promotion. I might be streaming more Overwatch recently. Just I want to learn Ana and actually get good
Recently.
for once. So I might put actually some hours into learning the game and learning maps and learning actual tactics. So I may stream that as well. But something I just wanted to say is I think a good way of putting that difference is in Overwatch you can change the pace of the game using abilities quite easily. Especially if like ultimates. While in Valorant, you could easily just change the pace of a game by just being good, or like actual like just using the weapons, not abilities.
I really like that. I like to think that's a diss aimed directly at you. The way he said it,
Yeah.
like, by being
Yeah.
good.
Oh no,
That
no,
was-
but like in
My
like no,
clutch play with my fucking Ryan charge isn't good enough for you.
no, because like in Overwatch, you necessarily some characters you don't need good aim, while in Valorant you do.
Ooh.
No, Alfie has the better
Looking at
aim than
you,
all of us.
Symmetra.
We tested this and confirmed
To
it.
be fair, I did
don't
somehow.
think we did.
Yeah, no, I had better tracking and
We
flick aim
did
than you
one
guys.
online browser test with
Yeah, bro,
multiple
no,
people
it's
with issues
consistent.
and did it once. I'm like,
fuck
But
oh, yeah.
I would say that no, like in all seriousness with my aim, I think I probably do have better click, like move mouse and intending to click specific location accuracy than you guys, right? Like pure flick aim.
Definitely.
But that's because I play a game, and the DPS characters that I main in Overwatch, which is pretty much just McCree. Well, okay, that's not true at all. But McCree's the one I enjoy the most, right?
Damn.
Explicitly reliant in no ADS, move mouse, click very specific location, right? Even if you like, you like, I mean, this is pretty provable. Like, you can get pretty damn high SR players from Overwatch that are really good at hit scan aim. And they will not be as good in like CS:GO or Valorant, right? They'll still be way better than like the lower ranks in those games because they just have good aim. But they're not going to be at the pro level where they're absolutely nailing all the spread patterns, right? Because they're just not that good.
Yeah.
Unless they practice, like most of the people would be capable of getting that good, but they're not going to instantly be that good if they've not played CS:GO before. They'd have to practice and learn the weapons. That's just not a thing you have to do in Overwatch. So I definitely say that. But at the same time, my aim's also really inconsistent. And that's a big thing in Overwatch as well. It's a really important thing to be able to flex between multiple characters, right? Because you might have individual hero counters through to heroes being weaker in the current balance and meta. whatever it may be. So you need to be able to play, hit scan. You need to be able to lead your shots. You need to be able to manage projectiles well. And if you can get like good in all of those, you do not need to be like the best hit scan McCree on the planet. You just
Yeah.
need to be a good hit scan McCree and a good May and a good Farah. And if you can do that, like some of the best players in the Overwatch League are good because they have played at an astoundingly good level. Junkrat through to fucking, Echo through to McCree and Widow. So like, I think that like the problem that proposes, and this is definitely a thing people experience at the high levels of Overwatch as well, is just like it's tough in Overwatch to switch because everyone knows that aim takes warming up, different amounts, different people, right? I would say that most CS:GO players can probably aim. Like my aim would be worse off at the start, but then probably peak again like the Overwatch hit scan style higher than say like Charles's, who I think would definitely be better at me at the start and then rise up a bit as he warms up. But he's much more consistent than I would be because I start off, I need to warm up and play Overwatch for a couple of rounds before my aim's like properly clicking. But then the thing is, I could probably be clicking on McCree or Widow, and then I swap over to May, and it's going to take me definitely not now that my aim in general is warmed up. It's not going to take me a couple of games, but it's going to take me like a few minutes before I'm quite on click with those projectiles again. So it's definitely interesting. I think that Overwatch has like a very different, like the aim in Overwatch is a completely different thing to aim in like CS:GO or Valorant, and that definitely impacts why the TTK is the way it is in both games.
I would say like because in Overwatch you don't need that flick as such, because like like unless you're playing Widowmaker or like I don't know, like Widowmaker's the only one I can think of. You're not going to be hitting those consistent headshots where they kill the enemy all the time. While in Counter-Strike and Valorant, that is a key element of that game. If you're able to get your flick onto their head, you're going to win like a majority of the gunfights you're in.
Headshots are still pretty important in Overwatch.
But it's not like an instant kill.
No, it's not. It's not an instant kill, right? But like, if I was playing McCree, like, I would be having significantly more impact if I could, as they push. Say it's like I'm just gonna use a map because, you guys don't know all the maps. It's like Temple of Anubis second point. We're defending, right?
Yeah.
I'm stood looking straight down main, and they're going right side through the inside. And like I'm shooting down main, if I can flick and get a couple headshots on their Roadhog as he pushes in there, forcing him to have to use his ability E to heal because they don't want to waste their healing resources currently. That sort of play is the impact you get in Overwatch and how it differs to like what would have been an instant kill in Valorant. In Valorant, you take down a player, right?
Yeah.
That's definitely significant. In Overwatch, it's more like I have nuked that ability. That gives us ability advantage over these people, right? Our win condition now could be to try and burn down that Hog as much as possible. So maybe we put as much damage we can onto Hog before he gets that ability back up and to try and overwhelm their healing resources, which should allow us to collapse on their squishies a bit better and their team should just fall apart if you execute it well.
The same can be said for Valorant, just slightly differently. Is if you can try and fake out abilities from player and then you've got the ability advantage, that's the element. Like it's same as to be fair, it's the same as in Counter-Strike. If you can use no, it's not really. Oh, it kind of is. Like if you can, it's like if you can whittle down their economy.
Depends on the
if you
ability
can,
in Valorant, I would say.
But in Counter-Strike, if you can whittle down, like if you can make them waste a few grenades to put their economy down, that's economy advantage. So they all have sort of that same sort of idea.
Like a big thing in like esports analysis of both CS:GO, Valorant, and Overwatch is economy, right? And obviously in CS:GO and Valorant, it's generally just called economy because you have a currency in game that you buy things with. But in Overwatch, you have the ult economy, right? You have the ability economy, right? You don't generally in like casting refer to the ability set as like an economy. You'll just say like and like playing the game, you don't really think of it in that sense necessarily. You'll just say like Tracer no recall, right? So that your team knows that Tracer's got no recall, and you probably have the ability to try and do a bit of damage onto her, focus her a little bit, and she's not going to be able to escape as easily. But it's still a thing. Like an economy of abilities does exist, right? Whoever uses their abilities first, and whoever gets the least value out of them, is suffering the most, right?
Yeah.
In general, obviously, it's way more nuanced than that, and it's hard to just give a general example, but. Yeah, like economy matters in both games. It's just that it's very represented in a different way.
Definitely. All games, to be honest. Like every game sort of has its own economy. Even COD, I guess. It's just represented in a different way. And honestly, I'm not too adversed in COD esports. I haven't really cared. I just play the game because it's fun. Like Counter Strike's probably the only one. And Valorant. And like I wish I could play more Overwatch, but unfortunately, people who I play it with, are having issues with stuttering. Not to name anybody.
Yeah, I'm having real problems with that game for some reason.
I was just looking up. Have you seen any of the fixes and tried any
Yeah.
of them?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It started a couple updates ago. I don't know what it is. Like, what's weirdest to me is that, like, on the same hardware, in near enough, apart from that, I've reinstalled Windows with, like, the same background software running, right? I have this completely debilitating stuttering issue where basically some maps I'll be performing fine, my FPS will be great, it'll be working smoothly as anything, lovely, feels responsive, no micro stutter, no FPS drops, low frame times, it's all's good, everything's being real good right now. And then I'll just turn a corner and the game will just drop to like 20 FPS, and then it'll freeze on one frame for like 2 seconds, then it'll come back and it will kind of like slowly rise back up to like 60 to 100 FPS, and then it'll drop back down again, and it'll stutter like that, doing that same repeated back and forth for like 5 to 10 seconds, and then it'll just go back to normal for like the next couple minutes.
jeez.
And it's really bad because it's not like a micro stutter or like just low FPS, which both do suck and make it harder to play. It's like completely debilitating, and sometimes I'm sat like playing a character and I just can't see, so I'm just like, I have good map knowledge in that game and good ability knowledge, and I'm very toned in and used to my sense. So like a lot of the time I can still navigate the map when my game's completely frozen and still shoot where I predict enemies to be. But like it's obviously not ideal. So yeah,
Yeah.
I do need to fix that, but yeah, one day. I don't know why it's happening. I wish I just knew why.
No, I definitely agree with you. Like I'm having the same issue with certain games. Yeah, my internet's dying. There we go, it's back.
Yep, stream stuttering a little bit.
Back.
Oh, I thought that might be my mind.
No, it's back. Like I've said this multiple times. I needed a PC upgrade. I didn't realize while streaming COD that my RAM is maxed out. Makes sense if I only got 16.
Yeah, I need more
And at the moment, it's currently at a higher price than I wanted to pay for it. The RAM
What do you mean? Hang on. Right, we're going completely off topic. What do you mean it's at a higher price? It's about 90 quid for 32 gigabytes of RAM currently.
Wait,
it's
about
like a really
50
low price
to
right
60
now.
Wait, no,
quid
no,
for
no, no.
I haven't
16
personally
gigabytes
looked,
of RAM.
but I've seen rumors that DRAM prices are real good right now.
You can get RGB RAM for like 110 quid for 32 gigabytes. That's not a good price for 32 gigabytes. It's a good price for RGB.
Okay, let's not bring
gigabytes.
RGB into this because it's not important.
No, it's not in the
No, and it
slightest.
adds a weird amount to the price, but I got it.
Yeah, a really weird amount to the price for what is like the cheapest
It really
electrical
does.
Holy
version.
shit!
Do you now
Wait.
realizing how cheap it is?
Okay,
you know
so
that
no,
conversation?
No, because I swear to God, this is the only reason I kept bringing this up, because I swear to God, I was just looking on Amazon, and you know how it gives you the recommended sort of like lists or like items, and I saw 16 gigs of RAM for at 3200 because I use AMD, and it's the same as the one I was at the moment, and it said £112. I'm like, oh, that's more expensive than I last saw that last checked like a few months ago, and it was £80.
God.
I just checked now, it's £54, so you're right, it is at a really good price.
Yep.
Because I paid £112 for this 2 years ago.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Charles,
How
even
much
for
RAM do you have?
16
16
gigabytes.
gigs. I paid no.
what
Okay, no. So let me correct this.
Presumably 30.
Oh no, this is even worse, Phelan. On July the 1st, 2019, I paid £124 for this RAM, which is 16
What
gigabytes
is
of
wrong
RAM.
with
16
you?
gig at 3200.
Yes, that was the cheapest RAM I could find at the time.
Do you want to know how much money
Rubbish.
I spent on my RAM?
How much?
I'm going back and
It's
looking at RAM
on
prices somehow.
£100.
Yeah.
I bought it in 2 batches of 8, and it's currently overclocked to 3000 megahertz. It's technically 2666.
Yeah, no, that same RAM I paid for is it's
like-
more than halved in price.
I bought my RAM in like 2016 and 2018, bro.
I bought it at I know I bought it at a time where RAM was just at an expensive price. I just needed new RAM because I was buying a new CPU, so I had no other option. There was actually no, Phelan. There was cheaper RAM at the time. I think it was G-Skill,
I bet there was.
but it was like £90 still.
The thing is, like,
I just don't trust you people, but I trust Alfie. I don't
RAM
trust the rest of
frequency
you
is
people.
something that I really hate how much it influences price as well. I don't know enough about the internals of like the construction of RAM and like the component sourcing as to how necessary that is. But for like on my architecture, how much performance gain I would get purchasing a 3000 hertz stick, right? Over getting a 2666 and hoping I can overclock it like I currently have and can without a single issue.
Yeah.
Apart from lowering its overall lifespan, yada yada. Like I like it's just like why that shouldn't cost me fucking like 25 quid more. Like fuck off. Like
Yeah.
why can't I get 26600 Corsair Avengers for 86 quid and then I have to pay 107 if I want it in 3000? It's like why? That's just dumb.
So I'm definitely going to have to buy some more RAM soon then, because that is cheap and it's going to get me to 32 gigabytes. That's going to help
It's
a
your
lot with
birthday
streaming.
soon.
It is true, actually.
Hey, Alfie.
I'm not buying in RAM.
No.
Yet.
Although I was saying that I'm sat here considering buying 32 gigs of RAM and then giving him my old RAM sticks, but there could be
interesting.
compatibility issues for that.
Here you go, Phelan.
I'll split it with John. It's fine. Yeah.
Oh, it literally has no sort of fucking thing, but that's it doesn't give you prices, which is the annoying part. But like you can see around when I bought it, it was at a high.
God, you really need to look around.
I was desperate for that time.
To be fair, Phelan does, I will admit, he does annoy me by just how much he shops around for shit.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, a surprising amount of the time it pays off.
I really do want
For sure, it pays off in terms of how much currency you spend. But the time you spend trawling eBay and shit, fuck that. I just go on Amazon, look for a reasonable price and click buy.
What are we looking at? We're looking at 30 minutes to an hour for a full-scale check that normally saves me probably, I'd argue, about at least 10%, if not more, off the Amazon prices.
Not worth.
Okay, so there are some things I agree with Fade when it's like this. I will spend my time looking for stuff like old cameras, or like cameras that are like, you know, the camera I currently got now. I bought it for half the price you can get it retail because I bought it off Amazon. It's just worth it in that sense. However, when it's like if it saves like 10% of that price, I'm like, I can't be fucked. I'll just buy it on Amazon. I get next day delivery. You know, it's like, I can understand though, like there are certain items I will go to eBay to look for because it's just much more worth my time.
I'll be just a second.
No, it's much more worth my time to actually just go and do that, and it'll be more affordable in a lot of cases and just better in a lot of cases. But like I was just looking on there and like I would ideally love a Ryzen 5 3200, which is like £200 at the moment. But again, I need a new motherboard, and that's like another £100 that I just don't want to spend. So it's just that case of like I really need an upgrade ideally, because it's not the 1700. The Ryzen 1700 is bad. It's just an old CPU, and it's kind of just like going back to its day. Like if I don't know, like if a Ryzen 7 3700 is £280, which for a CPU of its core is really good, but just the motherboard I can't be fucked. But I'll definitely look into more RAM. 32 gigs. It's like, it's not nothing bad with that. It's just nice to have that extra bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Do they not sell the 3200 anymore? 2400? Oh, interesting. It'd be interesting to see what AMD come out with again though, like if they do. Anyway, what were we talking beforehand when Phelan...
We were talking about TTK.
That was it.
Then that like got into a discussion on how like the different aiming natures possibly, you know, facilitate the TTKs being the way they are in both Overwatch and Valorant to CSGO.
Something I wanted to say on your point was the fact that in Overwatch, having that sort of I felt like you could easily tell between an Overwatch gamer and a Counter-Strike gamer by just looking at like this, like if they did a test, an aiming test. I feel like an Overwatch player will definitely have the when you like you're hovering over, like when you tracking. They have higher tracking, yeah. Well, over Counter-Strike and Valorant, no, they're good at pro. They're not as good because it's not a needed skill.
Yeah, it's not really relevant. Like in Overwatch, if I'm shooting a Roadhog as McCree, right, I need to be able to have accurate aim to try and hit his head. It's not necessary, but obviously it helps, right? then if he's moving, especially if he's like Lucio speed boosted or something, right? I have to try and click his head and track his head at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in CS:GO, that's not the case because like if you're watching an angle and then someone peeks your
Damn.
angle and you shoot them, you don't need to track because they're dead.
Oh, damn it. 2 of them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. It's like, yeah, it's a very different, like tracking is more important on Call of Duty for that same reason. Oh my god. So yeah, it's if this does come out on Spotify, by the way, if you're wondering what we're laughing at, you're gonna have to
Oh, yeah.
watch the
This is
video. But that's something I just wanted to bring
I
up
mean, it won't
slowly.
even come
Is
up in the video.
potentially we may be going to Spotify. I did mention this at the beginning. It's currently like, okay, so I'll say this now, it's currently on Spotify. However, the hosting service I'm using is a paid one. There potentially could be a free one with either adverts into linked or put into the podcasts, or it's some other way. I'll look into that. If there is an issue with this, then I'll definitely go to the paid one. Like, not something I want to do, but hopefully this free one is a good option, and I will go to that. If so, I will definitely put it on Instagram, Twitter, and in the socials down in the panels, as well as on the Discord, just so you all can find out. Honestly, one of the big reasons I want to do this is I love listening to the podcast every now and then at work, and putting it on Spotify is a very easy way for me to do so.
Saying your own podcast.
As well as you guys. No, like I listen to podcasts more or less daily. The podcast I listen to would be True Geordie, and Jack May. I sometimes listen to the Misfits. They're a great bunch of people, but if I have to be in the mood to listen to them. One of my favourite podcasts I did listen to recently from Jack May was a fan favourite, actually. If you watch him, it's interviewing an officer called Peter Blexley. Wonderful human being, lovely guy who has basically lived a movie of a life. He was a normal investigation officer. He started the police force.
Bond.
Then he went into detective work, and then he became an undercover cop, where most of his stories have come from. Just listen to the podcast. Honestly, it's amazing some of the stuff he has to say. And Jack May Hour, Happy Hours, a good podcast overall. Wonderful bunch of lads, just like us, and we may be them like them one day. You never know. So yeah, we'll keep you up to date if it does come out on Spotify. Don't worry. It would be nice too. I do want an audio version of the podcast out there somewhere. We used to do it on Bandcamp, but that was just an awkward way of doing it, and it wasn't very viable for mobile users and as such. So yeah.
Yeah.
Pog.
Um.
Podcast.
And I think just related to that, it's worth mentioning. I got an email a few minutes ago. I think this is a sign. Podcasts are now included in your Amazon Prime membership.
Oh.
If that's not a sign, I don't know what is. I bet it
Nice.
costs.
That's really interesting, actually, because I just got an email telling me the same thing.
Let me check my intro email.
Ooh.
So something I just wanted to quickly bring up, just because I saw it on Twitter. How do you? I've already spoken to Alfie a little bit about this, but Phelan, how do you feel that Apple have finally, just said, "Fuck it, we're going to use USB-C on our new iPods and iPads."
Oh,
sorry.
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the new iPad Air, which is basically the old iPod Pro. Jesus Christ, fucking hell. The new iPad Air is basically the old iPad Pro, but in a smaller iPad Air chassis with some other improvements and USB-C instead of Lightning cable. Though they did have that small fit with USB-C and Lightning for a while.
Yes, and one of the things I love about this is I saw a tweet saying that Apple would run out of all the Lightning cables, so they just bit the bullet and went for USB-C. Which I feel like is what happened.
More USB-C adoption.
To be fairly honest, I think Tim Apple just doesn't care anymore.
Think about it. Yeah, this is such a weird decision.
It is.
Like, it's going to be tough because Apple, although they have, I'm pretty sure some of their higher end and professional products do use Thunderbolt, but like USB-C as a cable, you don't have to be using like USB protocol over it, right? It's a solid cable, reversible. There's the only thing I would say that needs to be improved is the design tolerance and the specification requirements for the ports, because some really low-end phones have like a slightly larger or smaller USB-C port, and that means that other USB-C cables that meet the standard more closely don't fit in. Like, then someone needs to get on these people and tell them to fucking up their
Yeah.
game, because it's really a problem.
I
But
also
like, yeah, I just want more USB-C. Like, it's a great cable. It's reversible. It's good for audio, video, keyboards and devices, peripherals. With Thunderbolt 3 architecture and getting the Thunderbolt 3 or 4 now chip, you can daisy chain and connect the shit ton of devices over it. Like,
definitely.
it's just a good cable.
Yeah, I kind of envious of the Thunderbolt just because of how good of a cable it is and the fact that I can't really use it because I don't have any products that need it. However, I did see something, and I haven't read too much into it, so I don't know exactly how they're doing this. But with OnePlus from Apple, I think they're doing one negative. Have you guys heard of Apple One? Something they revealed at their big event.
No.
So Apple One is basically
well, okay, hang on. That's legit.
yes. So it's a
Like,
subscription
you're
system.
sure? Not that tweet. That tweet wasn't parody.
No, it's a legit. It's on their website. It's £15 a month, and for that you get Apple Music, Apple TV, Apple Arcade, iCloud, Apple News, and Apple Fitness. However, this is the thing. Does that mean they're taking all of those away from default Apple products, and you have to pay to use them, or is it just a bundle to get the premium versions of this? If it's the first, that's a really shit thing for them to do because they are basic necessities on an iPhone. Oh, I don't know, because
like, you got to remember, part of being in the Apple ecosystem is being used to paying for stuff.
yeah, true.
Like on Android, I can buy my Android phone. I exceptionally rarely need to pay for an app. When I do pay for an app, it is normally because I have chosen to support that developer as a thank you for creating the app, not because it was like a requirement to get an app that did whatever task I needed. Whereas on iOS and Mac and like the Apple Store and that, there's a significant amount more paid products that just don't have free alternatives unless you're willing to go and find some like jank-ass one that's probably a few people have made on GitHub or something like that, right? So I think people on the Apple ecosystem are just more used in general to having to pay for general tasks that on like Windows and Linux/Android you just kind of don't do. Like, FOSS software is not necessarily open source, but free software is a pretty big thing on Windows and Android. And like, the mobile free software is obviously necessarily quite commonly lit with adverts, but like, that's just kind of a subset of mobile. Like, there's plenty of free software used on your PC that just doesn't have adverts and never will.
No,
Like,
yeah.
how many times have you used a SSH client or an FTP client that's just really good
Oh,
and
genuinely.
functioned perfectly with no adverts, no price, used a media player, an image viewer? It's just part of software.
Yeah, talking about that, my favourite thing with out of adverts, they genuinely just reminded me is Twitter. Oh, no, mind. So I was wrong, by the way. For £14 a month, you get music, TV, arcade, and iCloud. You have to pay for the premium version, which then gives you news and fitness, which is an extra £15.
Jesus.
So I do respect them. iCloud for the individual for £14 a month, you get 50 gigabytes. Family's £20, you get 200 gigabytes.
I pay £1.49 a month for 100 gig.
I'm really tempted to do that, honestly, because I like to put my images on there just to share them, and it's not too expensive. Oh, so they've just breaking news. Oculus Quest 2 has officially been revealed.
Yes, that's exciting.
At £300. Dollars, sorry.
Yeah. And with really good hardware.
Yes.
So if you are looking for what is probably one of the best VR experiences in terms of its portability, its ease of use, and its price, I would highly recommend the Oculus Quest 2. Apart from the fact that it's Oculus, and therefore you have to use Facebook in a couple of years / whenever the new accounts comes in. I think that comes in like halfway through, or whatever. So don't ever purchase one, and wait until someone makes a better version of the product.
Most definitely Valve.
No, I've not really heard any word.
No, Valve were making two VR headsets originally. If you exclude the Vive, which is I'm excluding because it was in partnership with HTC, and like
That's
I'm
true.
saying, like Valve making it. One which was going to cost like $3,000 just for the headset alone, new. That was going to be like the shit. Like, like the shit, like the best possible VR headset ever,
Mm.
that they dropped because they just realized that they don't think it's going to sell that well. And yeah, they're probably not wrong. And then the Index, which obviously went through and ended up being released as definitely one of the best VR one of the best VR headsets out there in its spec area, I would say.
Definitely. Like, they're the ones who kind of had made it so you can get high quality VR in the consumer world.
Prosumer.
There's definitely better headsets out there, but they're probably private or governmentary or military sort of use.
I mean, I like the
most
headsets they want
definitely.
to put on cows to make them happier and produce more milk.
Oh, that was like 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah, by putting the VR headset on that puts them in like a field of grass. And I'm like, I just don't see how this is going to work because the cow's just going to try and eat the fucking concrete on the floor and go, wait, what the fuck? And then it's just going to like mentally combust and either like kill itself or just sit there and be depressed.
Definitely. Like, yeah, it never made sense. That's what veganism does to you. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird situation where it is such a good product. The Quest 2, it's just the software side ruins it, and the fact that it's Facebook. If it wasn't that, that would probably be one of the best, or it would be the best portable priced VR headsets.
All I can say is, at previous me, when fucking in the early days of VR, Facebook bought Oculus. And then Oculus were like, we'll never let Facebook like invade us. And Facebook was like, we'll never touch Oculus. It's just going to be like, we own it, but we'll leave them be. And I went, never happening. Absolute bullshit. Because, like, of course it wasn't. That's not a particularly intelligent claim.
No.
But, you know, like, thank God I never bought an Oculus. I don't think I ever would have anyway, because none of the headsets are good, but that's not true.
Yeah,
You know. I mean, look, if I was to buy an original Oculus versus a Vive, like, the Vive is just fundamentally better.
No, it's not.
It is. It's got better tracking.
Absolutely not. The fucking controllers on the Vive were awful.
The controllers on the Vive were awful, but it's got better tracking.
I would personally go.
I really don't think it not. What do you like on the controllers on the headset?
On the headset, well, I mean, just in general, like fuck the controllers anyway, because everyone can agree the controllers are shit. So in this case, we'll just focus on the headset. I don't mean like more accurate. I just mean the way it works is better.
Right.
I would personally
go.
But
it was also really overpriced. Then they immediately going into their later product.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, no. You want to give me that face? All right, let's do this. Here's why TTK doesn't matter. Yeah, that's right. We're going back there because you left me out of it.
What about VR?
Just
TTK?
like you did. TTK is a very simple measure that is vaguely done in most circumstances and situations there, where you say, what is the highest base damage, not including multipliers? So we'll say for a simple example, shooting someone in the chest once with this gun, how much damage will that do? Excellent. How much damage, how much health does that person have? Excellent. How long will it take to put out those bullets to kill that person? Cool, TTK. Here's why that's awful. TTK is almost never a thing. It just doesn't exist in a game, I guess, unless you're point blank with someone in a very fast-paced shooter. It just doesn't matter. You're going to be a lot more strategic about the way you play with a lower TTK, because you're going to be utilizing cover a lot more than you would in, say, Overwatch, for example, where, admittedly, it's part of Overwatch because that's how the objectives work, but a lot of the teams end up clumped together in one vague area, obviously not right on top of each other as a crowd.
See the team fight.
Yes.
And
that's because that's an objective-based game mode. But you act a different way when there's a lower TTK. It doesn't make the game any less strategic.
Agree with you here.
It doesn't make the game any less thing. What's the word?
Worse?
What were you going to say? Because I've forgotten.
I was just going to say, I agree with you in general, but I would argue, in my opinion, that the tactical nature you play a very, very low TTK game, right? Like CSGO, where you take angles, you utilize cover way more, you try and smoke off areas and control the sight lines and things like that.
Yeah.
that nature is great. That's a bunch of tactics that you can utilize as a player. And I have nothing against people that enjoy that game. But for me, what I see annoying about it is I can do all of that perfectly, right?
Mhm.
But by pure chance, I can then be instantly killed because someone catches sight of me first and I just happen to look left instead of right first at whatever opportunity, right?
In which case, you haven't done it perfectly.
Well, okay, as best as I can.
To be
If
pedantic.
I'm pushing someone, right?
Right.
But in Overwatch, I can do all of those same things. And then once I engage in a fight with someone, I can do more skillful things to win or lose that fight, if being the case of lack of skillful things. So it's just the reason I would prefer Overwatch is that, like, cool, I can run around in Rainbow Six Siege and perfectly plan out our attack strategy and put out fucking drones and all this shit. But like, if I just slightly miss my aim because my flick was slightly off, that fight's over. And that's just like, oh, that tactics is waste. Whereas I could, in Overwatch, do all of those same tactics and then still have a way more nuanced, on both sides, opportunity to win or lose that fight.
What you could then argue then is that there's a lot less punishment for that sort of thing in Overwatch.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
Via that punishment,
In
you're
fact,
going
a
to
big
develop and
thing,
get a
just
lot
sorry
better
to
at
like
that game.
just
That's
to
why I'm
quickly
used
point
to
out-
it, because Charles
no,
is,
it's good.
you know, he's great at it.
On
Just
what?
to like very quick point, there's a big, not a big
He's not even
movement,
paying
but
attention.
No, I
he
didn't.
had the nerve to interrupt me earlier, like he did on the stupid RTX stream in almost the exact same situation, and now he's not even paying attention.
No, I got
Like,
confused about what you were saying I'm good at. Like,
a general
What?
sentiment in like professional Overwatch, right?
shut up, bro.
There's quite a large
didn't know
difference
where
in like
Luxembourg
the
was.
viewers and like the actual players, right? So a lot of people that play in top of 100 Overwatch are asking for like as much as possible all one shots to be removed from the game, right? Doomfist
Ooh.
punch, can one shot squishies out, because it's not fair. Because every other aspect of the game
Jesus.
relies on like you know, a nuanced fight happening, right? Whether it be abilities, a mix of aim, your team, what resources your team has to deploy, ults, all that shit exists. But like Widow headshot, people are asking to remove Widow headshot one shot, right? So you can still headshot people, but you can't one shot anyone. Things like that is a movement that not everyone, but a lot of people are pushing for, and it's
Such
interesting.
an interesting idea that I think
Yeah.
needs a discussion in its own right. Especially
It's interesting to me because, like,
yeah,
I don't think we have like necessarily enough time to discuss it because it's like that's a really big,
we absolutely
complex thing.
Oh.
Well, I mean, we do theoretically, but I think Charles has other topics he'd like to get on.
no, I was going to say, since Phelan had a massive go at me for, like, interrupting him,
Yeah.
since I had no idea, or I haven't really looked into this, and obviously you two are the ones talking about it, what about this RTX talk you had earlier that you didn't want to look at, Phelan, because you wanted to save it for this? How about you two have a talk about that? And obviously I have my own points in this, but I haven't really looked into... Well, I don't
What?
have as much to say.
I'm confused what you're saying here. Let's move on to the next topic that we all agreed would be a good topic that you two briefly discussed very vaguely earlier that I can also comment on.
I'm just gonna
What
very
are you
quickly
on?
finish my discussion with Phelan about the TTK situation
Yeah,
Overwatch.
apparently we're moving on to RTX, Alfie. What do you think
Yeah.
about it? The new
So
series of
a
RTX
big
cards.
contrast, a conflict between not just the professional players in Overwatch League and contenders, but even to like just general people that are playing the game and don't play professionally in top 500, is that like for people watching a stream through to watching on ESPN or the Overwatch League or watching it on YouTube, like it's obviously way more flashy to watch like the double sniper meta that we had when NYXL were big, right? Where it's Widow and Hanzo on almost every single team going against each other. You get these flashy Widow plays where they get 3 headshots as they peak, right? And they nail the flicks and it's amazing and the crowd's cheering and it's exciting. And that's obviously, in terms of like an instant dopamine hit, way more satisfying than watching like a Widow hit like 5 headshots on someone and kill them, if that was what it needed to kill a squishy in a potential future version of Overwatch, purely hypothetically. But the thing is, even though those pros obviously are very proud of their ability to do those headshots, and again, this isn't everyone in the Overwatch community, obviously people have opinions, but a significant amount of the Overwatch community does agree that like one shots just kind of suck, especially for people that play on top of 100 and are like streamers or rely on streaming for their career. You know, a lot of people that play in like contenders and open division stream as their second job, because contenders and open division don't exactly pay well, right? They're technically professional, but you know, they have a supplementary income. That's like, it kind of sucks for them because like if they just get distracted by chat for a second, what would have been a fight with nearly any other character they could have won back with ability usage, outplaying, being able to use
You get
communications to get
distracted
your
by
healing
chat. That's
resources used efficiently, right? But like, they just die to a Widow headshot, or they just die to a Doomfist punch, or times where like Doomfist punches into a crowd of people, and there's like a Zarya, a Roadhog, a Mei that just ice blocked, like a Mercy and you on Widow, and by pure fucking chance, it just picks you and you die as a squishy on Widow, right? Like,
yeah.
it's just shit like that like a lot of, not everyone, but a lot of people are like, actually, maybe we could change the game to not have these one-shots in the game. Like, remove all instant kills from Overwatch flat, at least without ability usage, because obviously there's some like technical instant kill ultimate combos you can do and such, but I mean, they're not instant, but you get the point, right? In general, leave any form of like just bam, someone's dead, to high cooldown abilities, easily counterable abilities and ultimates.
Yeah.
But it's it's an interesting sentiment. It's tough. It'll be interesting to see what the devs do, because it is a growing sentiment among pros.
Want one shots removed. I can kind of see the argument for it, but it's
because it's that sort of idea of you can then counterplay them. I don't know. It's like I can understand from a high rank point of view, top 500, like that why they wouldn't want it. But
yeah, there's also like the Ashe versus Widow sniper battle that's like an ongoing debate in Overwatch, right? So like Widow can one-shot squishies without any assistance. She just needs to fully charge her shots and hit the head, right? But then Ashe can't do that. If she scopes in and hits a head on squishy, she doesn't kill them in one shot. She takes two, unless she's Mercy damage boosted, right? Or they've obviously taken a bit of damage and such forth, right? So there's this growing sentiment as well. It's like, it sucks if your team composition, like obviously in the ideal world, you're playing perfectly as a team. Everyone's synergizing, your meta's perfect, you've got hero counters being changed and swapped out as necessary. But obviously that doesn't happen in reality, right? If you're playing comp, even at top 500, you still get put with people that want to go and mess around on Roadhog. Damn, they're going to be a better Roadhog than the dude in bronze, but they still want to mess around on Roadhog, right? Obviously, like Overwatch League and Contenders is a different story, because at that point you've got a team, you'll be having meetings, you'll have coaching and a strategy and all that side of it. But we're ignoring the professional side here. Like, if you're playing an Ashe because the enemy team's comp necessitates the burn damage you can get with her dynamite, but on the other way, your enemy DPS can play Widow because your team doesn't need to be burnt with Ashe's dynamite, and you've got way more pickable squishies. You now have a massive disadvantage against that Widow as a sniper, not just one-on-one with them, but on the actual characters, just by nature of the game, and that's kind of unfair. So like, obviously that's just like, are those heroes unbalanced? Well, they're different situational picks, but then because of the way the game is played, and you can't, if you didn't know, you can't stack past duo in the higher ranks of Overwatch, you can't facilitate that team play necessarily in all cases, to where it's it feels comfortable for you to be on that Ashe against a Widow, like, and you could switch Widow, but then you're losing opportunity and value on what you can do to other characters. So I think a lot of why like Widow and Doomfist are wanted to be, or just the one shots they have are wanted to be removed, or at least changed in some way. It's just a sort of growing sentiment of people to make the game just to take away those unnuanced, 100% certainty click and kill in abilities in the game.
Yeah.
And replace everything with, as much as possible, a more back and forth fight. At the same time, a way that could improve that is there's been a call as well for years in the Overwatch Pro community to have different versions of comp. So currently in comp now, this changed a few months ago, you have Rolock, which is where you have 2 tanks, 2 DPS, and 2 supports.
Right.
That's what the game's balanced around. It's what it is. The only small possible change is that back in the day, they had the attack and defense categories for TPS, whereas now it's just damage. And Jeff mentioned in a Reddit post that for balancing the game, he wishes he'd kept them separate, because he finds that now people complain if a character they want to have an ability set that's more defensive, right, isn't viable on attack on a set map, right? Which means they have to kind of flatten out all of the characters. And he says he wished they kept it so they could have really spec'd in some strong defense characters and really spec'd in some strong attack characters, and possibly even banned defense characters on attack and attack characters on defense, right? So that may change in future. I would personally like to see that change, because I think it would allow them to make more unique and more specific and more fleshed out character designs. Someone like Torbjorn that is viable on defense and attack right now in general, with a slight favor towards defense, like could be way more favor towards defense, and they could make these characters way more interesting and nuanced and stuff in that sense, and they could balance the game around this defense versus attacking fight on the DPS front. Anyway. And then you have open queue, which is you can pick as many roles as you want, blah 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 blah. You can only have one of each hero, but you can pick as many as you want. There's been a growing sentiment to have a team comp, basically, where you can, through some UI, form a team with 6 people, and then only queue into comp as that team. And then you have a team SR, right?
Okay.
So rather than measuring your individual skill as a player, not just in one-on-one situations, but on the hero that you're playing and how well you play with the team you are given, which is what normal comp does right now.
Right.
It's an idea of like, how good can you do as a team? Like, do you even come up with coaching and strategies? Do you think about the current meta and try and maybe pick a counter meta, right? Like, there's a big sentiment that people I think would probably quite enjoy having a team comp, because you can play more in that professional sense, right? With like coming up with metas, coming up with counters, coming up with strategies and play styles. Do you have a really, really good, Pharah player? And do you think you have an ability to bring out a comp that can counter the current meta? And try that and see if you can get to the top 500 best teams in Overwatch. So that's a thing that may come down the line as well, because that's something that a few pros have been asking for. And I personally think would be a good thing for the game. I think it's going to be tough in a sense of how it's like, the more comp modes you add, the more you divide your player base, and that's going to increase queue times. But it's also like, I don't know what's more valuable, like longer queue times or a better experience once you're in the game. It's tough to satisfy that like primal desire to play the game that people have, and that annoyance you get from being bored and waiting for something. But also, like, then in general, I think most people would agree it's technically better to have the game experience be better. But at the same time, people just do get bored in 40-minute queues. So like, it's a tough one, but it'll definitely be interesting to see what they do with it.
Overwatch balancing has always been
They're getting better.
Interesting. They've definitely done quite well for how many characters they have, how long the game's been out. But it's always going to be a struggle for them. And I'm not sure if they'll ever quite be able to keep up. I mean, one day they might hit an equilibrium, but I doubt it. And I doubt it'll be any time soon if they do. Hope they do, though. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I definitely think that the biggest balance change I want for Overwatch right now is that attack and defense split of the DPS that Jeff mentioned. Because I think, as Jeff points out, a lot of the problems they have with balancing characters like Mei, because there was a small period where Mei was a really powerful DPS character, right? She has a lot of CC, is that, like, obviously she's inherently a defensive character, right? She has the ability to freeze people and slow them down, to block off their pathways, right? She's trying to gain control over the enemy, gain control over where the enemy is and what they're able to do. But that, in the current version of the game, would be annoying, because if you spec her really defensively, you put her wall got a buff, so to speak. I'm not going to specify what the buff is, but it got a buff, right? Her freezing was made, longer range or something, right? That would be really advantage for defense, right? But might suck on attack on some maps, right?
Yeah.
And certainly against certain comps. So the problem is then you have players picking Mei on attack on those maps. At all SRs, you can have idiots in top 500, like, don't get me wrong, that are going, Mei sucks. Mei's really shit. I can't achieve anything. I want to play Mei and I can't even get past first point. But then you've got people on the other end of the spectrum going, Mei's so overpowered, man. I can't attack this point because they got such a strong defense for a stupid new wall. And that creates this really awkward situation for the Overwatch devs. So they basically have to take away a significant chunk of the individuality and personality of some of these characters and sort of tone them down to be more viable in all situations. Like, Torbjorn used to place his turret and upgrade it and really control an angle. Whereas now he has like a regularly throwable turret that you kind of just throw down, try and, get a small control over an angle for a short period before your turret's burned down. And in general, he just better damage, and he's got a aggressive ability that he can go in and actually win fights against DPSs and tanks with. Like, as a character, he can walk forward. So like, that's very different to what old Torbjorn used to be. So I think, and I would hope the Overwatch team would agree, and I would love for them to do this. A thing that would benefit the balance of the game would be splitting those characters. I'm not necessarily sure it would be necessary to lock off attack and defense. And then what you do for like King of the Hill maps, right? Control, where it's just one point and you have to capture the point, it flips between you. Like, do you just have attack characters in that? Do you have attack and defense so that they can swap to defense once they've captured the point? But then if the defense character is already defense sided, that's going to be really overpowered, possibly on those maps. But then the attack character is also really good at countering the defense characters because that's how the game's designed. That like, so they'd have to do a lot of testing. But I think it would allow them to more specifically balance these character interactions than they can right now, where they have this sort of obligation to satisfy players in all sorts of situations with these character ability sets, when in reality, like, I don't think the game should, or even now when they try and do that, really works around that situation. We're just talking about Overwatch balance now, by the way.
Yep,
Yeah,
quite
we
literally just
absolutely
gone to an Overwatch stream.
It has. We're gonna have Jeff. What's his face? Is it Jeff? I don't know.
Bezos, no.
Unless we're talking about Jeff Goodman. There's a lot
Maybe.
of Jeffs in the Overwatch team.
The one who
Jeff
sat at a
Goodman's the
fucking...
one that does the videos. He's the game director and vice president of Blizzard Entertainment.
Yeah, that one.
Is he the one who sat in front of a fireplace for 4 hours?
Yes, he does the Jeff Yule log streams.
Fucking
He was great.
beautiful. He
Yeah,
is.
Jeff Goodman, which is Jeff with a Geoff, is the lead designer for Overwatch. He's the one that handles like any hero you've seen in Overwatch is basically Jeff Goodman's like, work. He's the one that designs the abilities and the characters,
Oh, nice.
not from a lore standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. No, I do need to get into the game more. It's currently on season 22, isn't it?
Whatever season we're on now.
Jesus Christ. It's fucking
Mm.
old game.
Yeah, well, they changed the
But-
seasons to be a lot shorter.
Have they?
It used to be, God, how long did the seasons used to be? 6 months? A
Okay.
year? No, they weren't a year. Surely, they're 6
I
months.
doubt
Maybe
it.
they were. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But no, now the seasons are 2 months. 2-month periods.
Oh, fair.
So
Yeah.
they wanted faster seasons, like more rotation of SR, faster balancing, and they promised that they would start balancing against the meta. So the idea would be, if this current meta is in, rather than having to like have like a situation where we had like goats for like over a year and everyone got quite angry at goats, even though it wasn't a bad meta and people enjoyed it at the start, it was just that it was there for so long. They wanted to like say, if something like goats became meta, right, it'd be there for like a couple weeks, then they'd release a patch that just nerfs those characters and buffs some other ones. Then a meta forms up over those 2 weeks around those other characters, and then you nerf those and buff some new characters, and you kind of just go in this like, nerf buff rotation of like changing the meta through balancing aggressively. They said they were going to do that. Everyone was like, we're not 100% sure, but could be good. Definitely give it a go. We're glad that you're trying something. This is, good stuff. Thanks for communicating with us. And then they just didn't do it and still haven't done it.
Wow.
But COVID did kind of hit, and they are developing a second game, and it's a bit complicated in terms of what's going on there, and I'm sure. But they've been getting better at doing that more recently. Like the recent balance patches were definitely, these characters are currently strong. We're going to make them weaker. Like, not completely nuke them. They're still viable, especially at the lower ranks, but we're going to make them weaker. So at the higher ranks and such, you start to see a shift in meta. And they definitely did that with the latest balance round, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good to hear. I don't think games like are balanced. I don't know. Like, they're not. I don't know. I haven't heard too much from any other game being like too out of balance in recent memory. Obviously Valorant back in its early days did, Counter-Strike in its early days, but like, I don't know. I haven't really followed along with competitive gaming too much recently, or in the last year, I would have said, really. Like, Valorant was probably the first one to come out. I just want to mention, by the way, my keyboard, some of the colours are wrong, and I don't understand why. So that's a fun issue.
Interesting.
So, for context, I have a Corsair K75, I think it is.
Right.
And I have it on, so it shifts from dark blue to light blue. And for some reason, shift to Z and right alt and Windows
Right.
are going from, instead of light blue to dark blue, yellow to red. Went on to program to see if it was just a weird bug. It's not. So I know it's definitely the buttons.
Possibly had an LED die in them.
Maybe.
Depends on what LED types they are, but like my keyboard has an LED defect where 1, 3, and B don't have blue LEDs in them. So like if I have a rainbow pattern or any form of shifting pattern, anything that requires the use of the blue spectrum, anything above 0 in like an RGB code, right? It just doesn't get displayed. So like on like a fade through the rainbow, it will just be like, here's a bright red, black. Here's some green, here's some red, black. So like that's fine because I don't really care about that. And the only time I make use of my keyboard color other than just keeping it on one standard color that's visible to me is through Aurora, which I used to get Razer Chroma integration, and the other one, whatever the fuck it's called, I can't remember off the top of my head, that a few games have. I make use of that in Overwatch and that. I don't really like spend like the entire time looking at my keyboard to see abilities. Like it shows on my screen, like it's not that useful.
Yeah.
But it's just something nice. It vaguely adds a touch, and it does technically mean that like some of the colors profiles you get in certain situations, those keys are slightly off color. But one of the nice things you can do with Aurora is hue shift the color, so I can shift the color at a hue percentage, and therefore get it so that in the majority of the cases, none of those keys look off. Which makes it just less distracting if I ever do look at my keyboard to see what abilities I've used for some absurd reason. I won't at least go, oh, it's free yellow.
Fair. Nah, quite cool. I don't know. I've had my keyboard for too long now, so.
My keyboard is mostly okay.
You've got the best keyboard best rated keyboard for 2019, maybe 2020 as well.
I think it was 2019. No, it was until the magnetic adjustable actuation one, the
Apex.
Apex Pro, I think it was
7 Pro. I think it was, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it was a number in there as well.
Yes, which is like, so okay, so this is something I'm actually pissed off about for one game, and that is, again, going into Call of Duty. They made a big point of how they've implemented better movement system in the game. So, there's more, you can, like, when you vault, it carries with the momentum and all that, and the sound of your footsteps are obviously as loud as they need to be if you're sprinting, as quiet as you need to be. So it varies between your movement. So they said if you move really slowly when crouched, you have no footsteps. How in the world are PC players going to do that?
Oops. Okay.
Because we have analog control when it comes to movement. It's not like we can just slowly press the button in and go slower, unless you have an Apex 7 Pro. At which point it needs to, at least at that point, if it what's the word I'm looking for? If it allows it, like if they program that in the game, or do you have to program it in through a controller bind? I don't know, but it is a weird thing to do. Talking about that as well is, I doubt you have, but have you seen the news they're doing with the new next year's league for Call of Duty?
No.
So as far as I'm aware, it was only consoles. I don't actually know the backing. I do apologise if this is wrong. But as far as I'm aware, it used to just be consoles. They have now added PC players into this. However, you have to use a controller. So...
Right.
Yeah. It's like, what? Just why? I don't understand.
That's unusual.
But I think it is now more or less confirmed. People who play Call of Duty, the better ones are people who play on controller because of that aim assist, because of that analog control. It just works better for that game. It is one of those weird things, but it is how it is.
It is.
It is how it is. It's one of the. I just don't know. I found that really odd that they just like, hey, we're bringing the PC into the community, but you have to use a controller, so you better be learning. Oh, fuck me.
Yeah, I just probably wouldn't bother.
No, yeah. Honestly, it makes no sense. And I did find it funny that, obviously, failing or not, I'm talking about Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. That's developed by a wonderful little company, and they're making a new game called I want to say it's Project 83. I can't remember. I'll find out. But it's a Cold War game. And this was revealed like a year ago, and now it's going to come out around the same time as Call of Duty Cold War.
Uh-oh.
This could cause issues.
Yeah.
I'm also curious if they had insider. I doubt it, but I'm curious if they had insider information on Call of Duty, because
No, I think they just like to do because they had like the Vietnam thing and they had the Russian army thing. I think they just like to go for the less spoken about
Yeah.
conflicts, and the Cold War is definitely not only one of the least spoken about ones, but also one of the most challenging.
Oh, it's literally
That
just
being
called
said, I've
HE.
not seen any Korean War ones, so
Yeah, it's literally just called
ain't fair.
HE3. Also, because everybody forgot about the Korean War.
Mm.
Like, the amount of people I've asked, I don't know why, but don't ask. The amount of people I've said to, do you know what the Korean War is? And they're like, what?
Charlie's gone around insert
Yeah.
local town here, asking about it.
To be fair, like, not to bring up the fucking depression of the world, but I did send the article to Faye and and it's going vaguely viral on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
But 2/3 of US adults between like 18 and 20 something, 28 or whatever it was, were unaware that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
Oh, fuck.
And obviously 6 million is the pretty conservative estimate. So, yeah.
Are any of them
23% said they believe the Holocaust was a myth. So, I know.
Are any of
I don't
them...
know what goes on in American schools, but apparently not much.
Are
from what
any
I've
of,
learned.
are any of them aware of how bad Stalin was?
Stalin was epic.
Are any of them
Honestly.
aware of how bad Japan was?
Probably not.
Oh,
I mean, if
okay.
they seem to not know anything.
I reckon if they were to know about anything, it would
Be Japan, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Maybe, I suppose. It would be interesting. I want to speak to. If there's any Americans that want to chat to me about this, I'd be genuinely
If there are any
interested.
Americans that would love to come on the podcast, we can have a
'Cause, like-
wonderful conversation about this.
I definitely aren't like I've never been directly exposed to the US education system. I have had friends undergoing the US education system and been completely mind boggled by things like the allegiance to the flag. Like if someone asked me to fucking say some shit towards the British flag, I'd tell them I'll shit on it, but that's about it.
I'd
What the
say
fuck are
it's
you
red,
asking?
white,
What
and
about the
blue. What do you
Bible though?
want?
Because you went into that church every Thursday and just knelt.
Yeah,
Knelt, is
it
that
was
a
great,
word?
but you just got to sit there and not do anything.
That's
It
true.
was awesome.
It was. Yeah, it was
That
okay.
wasn't my choice, really. Like what we could get everyone anyway.
Oh, when
yeah,
we tried
like,
getting over, it was so much fun.
It'd be interesting for me to know because, like, I know generic shit. Like, I had a friend in the school system who has regularly walked past armed guards because you know that's a thing. Who has been sent home from school and had their younger brother sent home from school because someone tweeted something that was possibly them saying that they were going to shoot up a school. That's fun. Shit like that. And you know the same shit with like shooter drills, having maglocks on every classroom door and bulletproof glass because that's completely normal, and all this shit. But it would be interesting to know like what is actually taught in their history because from everything I've spoken to Americans, pretty shit. It's pretty bad. It's very America centric, and I would 100% agree that UK history is pretty UK centric as well. More, I mean, vaguely guess just very white centric, very European centric, and definitely does a really bad job of bringing up the bad shit involved in our history, and sort of just goes, "Haha, weren't the Tudors stupid? Look at how cute the Victorians are," and shit like that, and then goes, "By the way, World War I and World War II. Do you know Franz Ferdinand? He was a great guy. Also, make sure you get really good arsenic or cyanide, whichever one it was. High quality stuff's the good shit. Otherwise, you won't die." Haha, funny
And
history.
don't jump
references.
into like a 1-inch deep river. God, that was a mess, wasn't it?
That was.
entire-
Is that the guy who tried chucking the grenade that didn't?
That was. I can't
Fucking-
remember if it was him or one of the others, but yes.
I
that-
want to say it was
yeah,
the
no, he
grenade
chucked the
guy,
grenade. Yeah.
and he then like
What a mess. The
yeah.
World War One started with such multiple awful attempts and then coincidence.
But like, as America has an interesting military history, I will put it. To be quite frank, has probably been one of the largest countries in terms of egregious human rights abuses with its military. I mean, just look at the Middle East and the history of that. And like, sure, we were involved, absolutely, and I don't want to abstain us from that record at all because we did a pretty bad shit as well.
No, we
Most
didn't.
of the Western world did, but like America was, you know.
Is that the one by
Dropped over that.
Luxembourg?
Yes. Just gonna, you know, America was very much invested in the Middle East, shall we say. And then also you've got the war crimes of the nuclear weapons being dropped on Japan. And you can argue for and against them all you want. I am personally of the belief that it was an unnecessary action. I do not want to justify what Imperial Japan did. Imperial Japan was one of the worst countries up there with Nazi Germany, always overlooked in a lot of the Western history teaching.
Oh, it is.
Did horrific things to Korea and China, raped a bunch of people, kept slaves.
Right.
It was really, massacred people. Like, it was terrible country.
We never say this podcast is family friendly, right?
It's-
I just want to check.
yeah,
Let's not
it's
have
No, I
any-
make sure it's
not.
explicit, especially
Okay.
on Spotify.
They're not a great country at the time.
Hmm.
But I also think that if the documents in America show that they had other ideas, like taking the Japanese military leaders to a nuclear test site, detonating one of their bombs, and saying, "Look, you stop, or we do this to you." And I think Japan probably would have gone, "Oh yeah, okay then."
No, I
actually,
guarantee you they would have
in
gone,
response to that.
yeah, right. They would have gone, yeah,
I mean,
right.
but if you think
To
how
be fair,
quickly
they said yeah right after the first bomb was dropped. I don't know. I'm not of the opinion that killing that many civilians and being like, oh, it was a city with lots of war industry is a good defense.
Wasn't they meant to drop it
But
on a
still.
bigger city? But it was
Yes, I
too
think-
cloudy.
Was it both times that they had to divert?
I know
think
the
it's
something like
second
that. It's
time
one or
definitely
both.
was.
Okay.
But like it isn't acceptable.
Oh,
Though as
God.
you said, Japan, or especially Imperial Japan was horrific. The stuff that people
No, absolutely.
talk about and let's say glorify. They talk about what Nazi Germany did, especially science and testing and all this horrific stuff they did to humans. Japan did the exact same. And
Yeah,
everybody
and I would also like to point out, like, in the sense of like glorifying the Nazis, like anyone that glorifies Nazis has clearly got something wrong with them.
oh,
Yeah.
At
definitely.
the same time, there is a growing movement in Japan, that is basically Japan got fucked over after World War II. They put restrictions on us that aren't fair. Our military restrictions aren't fair. We should be able to use the imperial flag. It's our culture and our history. And the majority of Japanese people are like, no, like no, just no. But it is a growing movement, and it's got good political leverage. I mean, Abe was pretty much of that movement. He was just retired as PM. So like, there's definitely groups of people, generally older but not necessarily in Japan, that still to this day deny Japan's history. There are school education books printed by a company that's well respected by the government that teaches and prints history books in Japan and says about Japanese schools that completely skip or lie about Japanese war crimes, say they didn't
God.
happen. They say that they didn't enslave Korean women when they clearly did. They say that they didn't enslave Korean men when they clearly did. Like, there's so much bad shit that goes on, and it's generally being fought against. There's that particular book as an example, right? People are pretty against in Japan. It's just also that the society kind of makes it awkward to speak out about that in like a very loud protesty way, and it's more like maybe write to your local district governor about how it makes you uncomfortable that your child's being educated that in school. So like, it's a thing in Japan. It's a problem, and it's a growing problem in Japan. There's a big sort of growing populist imperialist movement there. And the same thing in Korea, because Korea's like, oh, well, the Japanese are saying that they didn't enslave us, and the Koreans are like, but they enslaved us. That literally happened to my grandma. Like, what's happening here? This is bad. And the tensions are rising between Japan and Korea, which isn't good in general. And then that obviously influences the relationship Korea has with America and North Korea. So like, there's a lot of bad shit that goes on about the war, and like, it's important to not ever invalidate like the human suffering that happened, not just on civilians, but on troops that were put into tactical situations under the premise they had the chance to win it, when their superiors lied to them about the facilities and what they'd be up against. Shit like that happened all the time. Not to abstain the UK as some great country that pushed away the horrible tide of fascism when we murdered and bombed civilians unnecessarily all across France and Germany. Like, war is messy and horrible and not nice. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to criticize things, right? Like, I still think dropping nuclear weapons on civilians was a stupid decision that was just not necessary. And if I was in that situation, I would have gone to almost any length to not have to do that, right? The US had smaller nuclear bombs. They could have dropped on smaller and many more military targets. Didn't. Like,
Did they?
yeah. Like, they had a plan to hit some other military targets in the area, I believe. But like, they didn't go ahead with it because they basically went with whatever the plan was called. Because they had a few options. There was like showing them nuclear bombs, dropping one like near the island, shit like that. There's a plenty of like things they had planned.
Oh, so can I just
But
also
again, like how much of this was like a plan that was proposed by someone that never got past X superior? Like I don't know all the explicit detail of it.
So I was just looking into it. For one, they had an agreement with the UK. America had an agreement or had a meeting with UK and Canada saying they they would not use nuclear weapons outside of any country or their country, the America.
America famous for withholding its
Yeah.
international agreements.
And I think at one point, like they had a meeting and they said, yeah, you can do it between these days. I don't know. I didn't read too much into it. The one thing I want to say is talking about America just not
They
really
vended
giving
one nuclear bomb and
Yeah.
was like, here you go.
talking about America not giving two shits about stuff. That time they tested a nuclear bomb on an island, didn't think about fallout, and then killed like a bunch of people,
Yeah.
a bunch of people from a tribe on an island not too far away from the test site, because they
That time
just didn't
America
think
was
about it.
like, hey, we are a country that's cool and we're new, so maybe we're just gonna go murder a bunch of people on these islands because we want them because they
But
got bird shit on them.
can
Like,
we-
thanks.
As much as they are bad, I don't know if this is true or not, but didn't Russia kill more civilians than anybody else?
I don't know. Like, it depends on what
yeah.
you're measuring. Like, the USSR had many problems. Trust me, as a out socialist, I will criticize Russia's communist state and China's communist state and a lot of the others around the world. I mean, it's just principally part of me to criticize any state, right? I don't care what ideology they have. I will criticize failings of the state that I disagree with. But like, I don't know what the actual numbers are. Like, it depends what you were carrying it. Like, if you were just saying World War II for like Europe and America as well, like that's a pretty short period in comparison to like the overall length for the USSR. So like, how do we measure that? Do we consider like all of the war in history and like in Europe in like the past 100 years? Like, it would be tough to measure. The point is, killing civilians bad. Please don't do it.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is
Especially foreign civilians.
I think the biggest problem is the fact that reading into this, during the Soviet era, the estimated
Yeah.
figure for casualties, both military and civilian, was 20 million. However, post-Soviet, it was 26.6.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know how much you know of Russian history. There was an extended period of turmoil, shall we say, after the fall of the Soviet Union. A lot of people don't know this about Russia. A lot of people in the West think Russia is just like the big country, but it's actually carved up into a lot of districts, some districts of which are self-governing completely, some of which act under the federal thing. And when I say self-governing, I mean that's the official sense. In reality, it doesn't really all work like that. Russia's a pretty politically and military corrupt nation, if that wasn't obvious. So it's complicated. But like, yeah, like Russia has had its fair few of like, hey, look, we've just had some awkward political event. Oh, our military's firing at the parliament. Whoops. Oh dear. Oh, that's just tanks firing at the parliament. Okay. Right. Shit like that's happened quite a few times in
So-
its history.
looking at this graph, by the way, Russia had the most amount of civilians killed. No, sorry, China had the most amount of civilians killed during World War II.
I mean,
Which
yeah,
was
that's probably not that
around
surprising, but
20
not by
million.
China. Presumably
Yeah.
this is not by the state.
So this is I'll put it in chat. This is the graph I'm looking at.
Because it depends, like, if we're measuring, like, how many civilians from
Oh,
each country
thanks.
died versus how many civilians from each country died by that own state, right?
But like the thing that surprises me is looking at that pie graph, just how many more just the fact that the most of the pie graph is taken up by Allied civilians is the worst part of that.
Yeah. I think one part of the war that's, like, not really, like, covered that well in the education that I had in the UK is we learn like a lot about World War One and World War Two, like not like the nitty gritty detail because like you just don't have time for that, but you learn the general overall gist, and you might learn about some significant military events that occurred, but they never really go into the detail of like just the amount of civilians that got caught up in it, right? Like
Yeah.
not just in like particularly notable war crimes, just in general. If you know you're pushed, like you know Germany's pushing into the east of France, Like, there's going to be a shit ton of civilians that die in that, trying to fight people, running away, people that are just killing for the fun of it. Like, in that environment, it's just so chaotic that the majority of it just isn't known, really. But a lot of people died, like,
Holy
on all
shit.
sides.
Carry on.
Yeah, and then there's, like, the Nazis killed quite a lot of people in their camps. Not just the Jews, but very proportionately, notably, the Jews. And yeah, like, it doesn't make Germany like bad now, but it's obviously something you have to consider about their history. And you've got leading political parties in Germany that use quotes from Mein Kampf in their political manifestos and slogans. So, like, the world's an interesting place. Sure. Don't try not to commit war crimes if you can, especially Western countries who commit a very proportionate amount of them around the world. I wouldn't mind if you stop that. And at previous UK, can we stop drawing borders without thinking about them first? For the love of fucking God.
Yeah, that won't cause issues in the future.
The problem, my favorite part about that is if you look at the world map, like, if it's not America, where America carved its borders after just murdering a bunch of people that had previously been living in America.
Living in America.
Like, if you
Sorry.
look at, like, pretty much all of Africa, pretty much all of Asia, those borders, yeah, they were mostly us. Like, as Europe, as like not just the UK, but as Europe, right? And it's like, oh, that's really quite sad, because it makes you consider, like, how accurate, like, in the UK, like, you can, or in Europe, sorry, you can pretty distinctly agree that the borders culturally represent our nations currently, right?
Yeah.
And where, like, Germany's borders have historically expanded a little bit beyond that, shall we say, they have been since returned to a more acceptable cultural border. But in, like, Africa and shit, right, like, the borders still in areas represent cultures, definitely. But it's also like in other areas they don't, and it's still causing problems. And those borders were drawn by us and France, being like, "Oh, I want this bit, you have that bit," and it's just really quite depressing. And, like, the whole Middle Eastern crisis was because we were a bit upset there a while ago and did some borders, and then, not to oversimplify, but oil Israel and boom. So the West sucks in general.
Yeah, no, that's...
So yeah, in my general opinion, I would say that America's time to kill is pretty low.
That sums it up. And all the and I don't think their graphics are high enough, so I think they should upgrade to the 30 series, honestly.
Damn it, I had a thing about, like, how many bombs or flags could they render depending on what point of the conversation this ended.
They,
Right.
I was gonna start talking about because I couldn't find exact numbers. I was gonna start talking about how another big problem with the World War II is the fact that the majority of bombs dropped didn't explode, and so I was just looking for numbers.
That and minefields, yeah.
Like, is it in Finland? I know it's not World War II, but there's a minefield in Finland that is basically just...
I mean, to be fair, most of the comments we're making can be applied to, like, most modern wars.
But yeah, no, it's just scary. They're still being found daily, I would have said, or, like, to a point, like that, like, monthly.
Frequently.
Yeah,
definitely frequently.
it's scary, but yeah, that's why. And I wonder if anybody's going to find any V2s.
Yeah, I mean,
Just
and
around
it's also
London.
interesting because it all plays into each other, because, like, the sort of warfare that started with World War One and really developed with World War Two, like, was very, using machinery and new equipment and vehicles and making use of all this new shit that we were inventing, right? And planes and all that stuff that we had, and
Rockets.
bombs that we were making and all that shit. Cool. Awesome. But, like, that desire is also a deep driving factor as to why the US occupied the Middle East.
Yeah.
And then that went where that went, as we all know. So it's like, what the consequences of these events, like any war like that, has such overbearing consequences for so many years afterwards. Like, it's very easy to think of World War II as a thing that ended quite some time ago now, but it's still very much having an
Oh,
effect on the world, especially for certain people in certain areas.
I know this was a while ago because I remember it being back in school, but what country was it that only just like more or less at the time paid off their debt from World War One? I want to say it was Germany, but like I assume there's still countries that haven't paid off debt
I mean,
because
most
of these
countries are in
wars.
debt at the moment, but that's just kind of how economy work.
Okay, fair. That's always great to hear.
Yeah.
That's quite useful.
That scared me from uni, and I wish I like just wasn't.
Still go to uni?
Yeah, I know. I don't know
Never
what
let
I would
stop you.
do, but no,
What the
yeah.
fuck you want?
Yeah, I don't know. Why would I?
I mean,
know?
I just mean if you think
Well-
if you think you want to go to uni because you didn't know how the loan system worked, and I taught you how the loan system worked that one time.
On podcast.
For God's sake, education system, why the fuck did you not do this?
To be fair,
Then-
it's also Charles, so.
It's a bit of both, yeah. Um, like, yeah, I think you should do it. Like, I think you should definitely be
I
more
think-
cautious about it than some people I know was, and maybe not feel the pressure that some people that I know, not me, felt by my education institute to go to university, who really pushed that it was the exceptionally necessary step and I wouldn't have any possible career without doing so, which is absolute bullshit, and maybe kind of rush into it when I wasn't necessarily mentally prepared or mentally ready for it, and I probably would have done better to leave it a bit and go in my own pace. So I definitely advise against just like jumping in somewhere without like really trying to think through how you'll get on with university housing and the different types of that, and Brit universities, and whether you want to be in a campus university or a spread out university, and all that shit. But I definitely think like if you are interested in it, definitely have a look. There's a lot of courses out there, and I also wouldn't necessarily say that you necessarily have to do a course for a career. Like if you just wanted to do a course because you were interested in doing this course, then like fucking do it. Why not? Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
It basically didn't cost you anything over here, so
But it might as well just be free at this point.
well, yeah, sort of. It's getting a bit worse. The government are making a couple of changes.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Mm.
Just interest rate
I
increases.
think
Oh.
you should do a course on computing, because then you could learn about the figures released today, because the review embargo on the RTX 3080 ended.
Damn right.
Ah.
That's a good call for you then.
Yeah. Which was pretty much what I expect from what little we had before. It was about where I expected, lower than what
Yeah.
I'd hoped. I don't know how the 3090 is gonna compare. Oh,
The
So-
3090s, from how they framed it, which is again Nvidia, take it with a grain of salt,
yeah,
definitely seems like even in relation to the 3080, like that's a chunky card.
yes,
But how much that actually comes true at different engines and at different refresh rates and resolutions will really be interesting for my personal purchasing decisions, I think.
So for those of you who don't know, I have a 2080 Ti. I brought it about a year ago, I think. Was it a year or 2 years? I think it was just 1 year ago. And from what what Nvidia said at their initial release, I was a little bit concerned. Having seen the 3080, I'm not particularly concerned about keeping my 2080 Ti. To be fair, I also didn't pay full price for it because I'm not an idiot. I paid £750 for it.
Fuck, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more
I think,
expensive
like,
than
see,
my old
I think-
PC.
This is what happens when you shop around people.
I
No, that's
think
expensive to me.
yeah, it's
No,
not
not
expensive
for
for
a-
that card.
Not for a
Um,
Ti, but
And to be fair, that card is really overpriced.
yeah, oh, absolutely it is.
But yeah, no, I think the maximum I would have spent on a 2080 Ti would be like £800.
Mm.
So you got a pretty good deal there.
How much
And
are you looking
like
for it
worst
now?
was my
case.
max as well.
I'm not buying a 2080 Ti now.
The
trust
prices
me.
are fluctuating, especially since the reviews were released earlier. Before I was seeing them consistently for below 500. Even as of earlier today, though, a lot of them were going above the 500 and 600 mark.
I'll offer
Which
you
I-
surprised me with
400.
the embargo.
If I do sell mine, I'm looking to get 600. We'll go into that. But because of what I've seen from a 3080, yes, it's got better performance than a 2080 Ti. Yes, it's going to be cheaper, but it's also going to consume just that much more power. That's just too much. So I think what I'm going to either do. So 3 options are stick with the 2080 Ti, go to the 3070 purely depending on like its power thing, because it's meant to be lower power and supposedly better than the 2080 Ti, but that we've not seen any benchmarks been released for that yet. Or really, probably even less likely though, be going for the 3090 if I wanted to go for another all-out graphics card for gaming where I could run at 4K at 100, well, at least 120 hertz, although I know that isn't some people's cup of tea and they'd prefer a higher refresh rate.
Yeah.
How much are you looking for yours?
For me? Oh, yeah, right.
Like I said, I reckon I
Wednesday,
could get
maybe.
600 for it.
Right, I
Whether-
will offer 400.
Yeah. So whether that's what it sells for, there's a lot.
I
and
like your
AMD
ambition.
finally coming out with just some little smidges.
Some
Goddamn.
smidges of info.
I like that they've released things in Fortnite. I don't know why, but I absolutely love
Wait,
that.
what have they done?
It
I
has
haven't
a
seen
unique
this.
flair to it, doesn't it?
You haven't seen?
No.
Yeah, also what? You don't play Fortnite regularly every day and discover it there like me and Phelan did?
Oh man. So they've released the design of their what's it called? The RX
Whatever the fuck it is.
6000?
Oh, yes, no, I have heard about the 6000 series. I'm slightly
that's-
worried about it, but I haven't seen
That's
it.
been released. They possibly released it elsewhere as well, but they've released like a massive 3D model that you could go around in Fortnite,
Oh my
like as a
God.
map. And they also, I think they also released. Was it a teaser? I can't remember if they released specs before they released the design, or if they just teased the card's existence. By the way, they used Fortnite for that as well, which was pretty funny.
Oh my God.
I'm excited to see what that brings, because from what we've heard, it's meant to be between the 3070 and 3080. So that very much, depending on power consumption and price and benchmarks, could be my go-to card. But we'll have to see.
Oh, is it this? I'm going to put it in chat.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're finally going with
tweeted
not a
it.
blower design on their reference cards.
Which is, I like that, to be honest.
Which is, yeah, good. It's about time, to be honest.
It's
I'm not
literally
quite sure why
clean.
they'd...
Honestly, it's just going to be pricing now.
Yeah,
I
like
think it's going to make the
performance.
biggest difference. I don't know.
I mean, are you gonna buy like if it's like a
I would have
if
thought it was
like-
going to be
if
at
it's
least
like equal
equivalent.
performance. If it's like equal performance or worse than like the 3700 for like less money, like I'm not buying that. 3070, by the way. I'm just
Yeah.
using
Right,
NVIDIA.
I do
AMD's
apologise.
Fucking naming convention in my head. Then
I'll be back in a minute. Someone's calling me, so if you want to carry on.
Oh yeah,
How
no, absolutely,
dare
it's
you.
fine. Yeah, the thing that I was also thinking is one of the reasons I might have to go for a 3070 or one of the new gen of cards is purely for resale value. Like, I'm confident I could get that perhaps just under 600. I know I keep dropping it now every time. I've learned from Charlie. Around that sort of price for my 2080 Ti in a few years, that's not going to be true. So it might just be worth upgrading to have that resale in however many years until I upgrade that one. But in that situation, I might consider if it has similar performance. What
Yeah.
AMD have really got to compete with isn't just the graphics card as well. It's the tools and associated benefits of RTX that they've got to compete with
Like,
now.
I have to admit, for me, I do game. Like, don't get me wrong, I do game, but even though I don't do it regularly, I am planning to try and do it more regularly, and would definitely be benefited by these new cards. I do a lot of other video work, whether it be rendering, and I would like to get into stuff that requires 3D performance and such for like
Which,
making
to be
models for
fair, I think
games
the
and
next
such, right?
NVIDIA gen has done
Which-
surprisingly well on. I wasn't expecting them to go so
when
hard
you
into
look
that
at the
field.
increase in CUDA cores and tensor cores and such across 20,000 to
it was getting a bit
30,000
chilly.
series of RTX,
Mm.
it does make me look at it with more appeal, because sure, I might not have got quite the raw gaming performance boost that I was vaguely promised, I guess, from Nvidia's presentation,
Yeah.
but like I still want to see, and obviously these are going to start coming out because obviously most of the reviewers that have released stuff now were sort of like, you know, here's just the stuff that the majority of my audience is going to care about in a review. But I want to see, like, how do these perform with, like, you know, CUDA NVENC rendering, right? Like, can I, if I've got, like, you know, what is it, like 10 times the CUDA cores on my GPU, or like 5 times whatever the fuck it is on the 3080, like, is my video renders, like, what percentage benefit does that actually affect my video renders? Is it a 1-to-1, or am I going to get, like, you know, a reduction in time of, like, you know, 0.8 or whatever it works out to be? Like, I want to see those numbers. How useful is that going to be to me? Because with what I've seen from the FPS increases that you can get with RTX on and DLSS on at 4K,
Yeah.
it is pretty clear that the card's potential for hardware things like upscaling and, you know, games that have utilized hardware path tracing have also seen the most significant RTX increase in performance, right? So,
Yeah.
like, the card's clearly excelling in that part, separate to just the raw gaming performance. So for me, that's a big factor for me, because if like in my dream world, AMD will come out of a release that will nail all of those things and the gaming performance, and I will absolutely buy that.
So to add on to that, I will probably find out on October the 28th, which would be nice. I don't know. I just hope it's well priced. I don't need an upgrade, to be truthfully honest. I just need a new CPU, which we spoke about earlier. So
Well,
what
you might be
GPU are you
able
on
to
now?
buy.
I'm on the 5700 XT.
You might be
It's
able to
not a
buy
bad card at
a
all.
gaming
No.
PC soon, Charles, depending on how things go. As 32 gigabytes of RAM, a 2080 Ti, an i7 7700K.
How
Yep.
much?
Something a bit more on your price range. You might be able to buy a gaming PC soon, Charles. It's got 16 gigabytes of RAM OC'd, a 7700 K OC'd, and a 2070 non-super OC'd. Oh wait, shit, that's worth £2. Fuck!
I'm super confused, but nice.
I'm probably upgrading most of my PC.
Oh, well, if you want it for a fair, decent
Not
price
like
of about
tomorrow.
Did
400.
you not get
but
that? That's what I was
A
saying.
few
or was
months
it
down the
like...
line. Apparently, it was very unclear.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
I am. Yeah. So I just want to say we got the reveal for Call. I just want to see the price of the PlayStation, honestly, and I want to see if they've got any games.
That'll be 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
From the
Yes.
time of us living this.
Is there anything else you guys like to talk about?
Well, the future of gaming, I think, really.
Oh, so actually talking about that, before we do this, I want to ask you guys what your predicted prices for the new PlayStation will be.
Oh, before I do that, I just want to make one comment on the 30,000 series. Or
Okay.
whatever the fuck Nvidia's shitty naming convention is.
Yep.
Yeah.
The fucking 30 RTX, GTX, and Nvidia fucking DLSS RTX 2.0 Ti fucking super cards. I just want to say, not just like everything we were talking about in terms of the not just gaming performance is relevant for AMD as well, but also real good performance on whatever the fuck their competitor is to DLSS, because DLSS is looking
Yes.
2.0 is looking really significant on this new RTX generation. Like, I have seen from the reviews I've watched, this is off the top of my head, but I think 0.01% lows of 13 FPS taken up to like 28 in like really high stress situations. And that's at 4K with RTX on or on like ultra. So if we can get that sort of boost from DLSS on Nvidia's thing, not that I am ever going to be running a game with RTX on 4K personally, but there's other use cases for it that same FPS increase would be relevant to me. I definitely think it needs to be a big focus of AMD in terms of their competition.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're always known as the cheaper alternative, so, you know. pricing is always going to be important. But yeah, so do we have predictions on the PlayStation 5 price?
So, for a bit of context, correct me if I'm wrong, Charles, the Xbox Series S, the scaled down version, is will be $299 up front.
Yep.
Whereas the
Yes.
Series X, the full beefy boy, will be $499.
Those are rumored numbers. I don't think they've confirmed that yet.
The Xbox Series X price was confirmed at $299.
Series S?
Series S,
Series
yeah.
S, sorry.
Yeah, the Series
the
X.
small one, that's $299.
Gotcha.
They haven't confirmed the
Yeah.
X yet. From what I've heard, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they
Yeah.
haven't.
But it
Gotcha.
seems realistic that it will be around $500.
All I know as well, and I may be wrong, so I am just checking this. But yeah, the important things to note about the Series X versus the Series S, right, is that the Series S has the same CPU. Well,
Yeah.
it's the same custom architecture, but clocked slightly lower.
Yep.
The same GPU, but slightly less extra cores and clocked slightly lower, which gives it significantly less GPU, but the same architecture, same general thing. They just cut off some of the cores, basically. Same architecture. It's got 6 gig less RAM, with lower speeds on the RAM, and the same support for the storage stuff, but with less storage in it.
Ooh,
so for $299,
not
it's
too bad.
pretty interesting because it principally is the CPU is near enough, like exactly the same. It's clock low, but I'm pretty sure it's literally the same CPU exactly as the Series X. The GPU, they basically just shaved off the stuff that they can to get it to whatever price point. So I think, like, in my opinion, the Xbox Series X is the best console announcement from this like new generation out of all of them, because I don't think everyday people care about being able to run 4K at 60 FPS. I just don't think the majority of consumers care.
No.
It's a good buzzword, but I think people would be more interested in being able to just run the new games without the stutters and frame drops that can be common on consoles. And I think the Series S will be more than capable of that. And for $299, that is a very reasonable price for a console.
So something I just wanted
if
to
the
add.
X did turn out to be $500, I would be genuinely really surprised, and that would be really impressive.
So something I did want to say, and this is not confirmed, but there's been a rumored number. So basically, someone found one of the SSDs on the Microsoft website for the Xbox. It's a terabyte SSD. And it could just be a placeholder number, or it could be a complete fake. But I think at the time, or at least the number was around 250, which, especially for a console gamer, is horrifically high. But I don't know, actual like specs wise, is it good?
Yeah, I presume that was higher than on release. I'd certainly hope so.
I just can confirm after reading it, the Xbox Series X was confirmed at $499.
Oh, okay. So that's decent.
Cool, so I'm not a complete fountain of
So all we're going to do now is find out what the PlayStation is. PlayStation
I'd guess $499 as well for the PlayStation, for the full version.
Yeah.
Yes.
And probably 100 or 50 less for the discless thing.
There have apparently been leaks about it.
Oh.
I'm just going to be clear, like, I was just going to guess pretty much the same as Fair there, because I would just guess the same as Xbox.
Yeah.
Because that's generally what these companies do, because they'll big up we're competitors a little bit on Twitter. I mean, to be fair, Xbox's Twitter has been trying to stop the fanboys from decimating each other. And it's pretty funny to watch if you look at their replies. But at the same time, they also definitely have a pretty strong agreement to not really compete with each other, as most large companies do. You know, you don't see Google and Amazon and Apple and Facebook having massive fights, despite being some of the biggest tech companies on the planet. They all kind of pseudo work together to help each other out.
Can I say something quickly?
I would definitely expect it to be just the same prices as Xbox. Like, it's just exactly.
Okay. But I don't want to rush this too much.
That's not what the leaks suggest. But
I don't want to rush this too much. But this is a 40-minute showcase, and I would like to watch most of it. So obviously, I don't mind. In 10 minutes, so I wouldn't mind going obviously we do another 20 minutes, because it's probably not going to show any prices or detailed stuff in the first 10 minutes. I very much doubt that, at least. But
I was going to possibly suggest, and this is going to be controversial to our Spotify listeners, that we could fade out the proper section of the podcast here and the recording,
That's what I was just about to
and
say.
then
as
the
well.
audio version, and then continue streaming and watch the review, the announcement broadcast
Cool.
live.
I just wanted to quickly get my
Prices.
summary.
Let's get the price.
things
Oh, yeah,
in.
you said your price, by the way, there.
Yeah, I did. So I just want to get my summaries. I reckon the digital edition of the PlayStation will be more expensive than the Xbox Series S, only because, as far as I understand, it's a lot less cut down. Whereas the Xbox Series S, well, is cut down. The
Is that the two
PlayStation's pretty
versions
much
of the
just
PlayStation 5? Because
removing.
I don't
There
know.
may be another one. I
think
I believe later on down the line they may have a reduced one if this pricing is around the same as the Xbox
Okay.
Series X.
the way I heard was they were probably going to release two, so one normal one and one without like a disc drive,
Yeah, no, so
and
yeah.
just call that like
Okay.
digital
So
edition.
there's two at the moment, disc drive, discless,
Mhm.
or downloadable one. I'm saying personally, because of what Xbox have done, they're either going to do something like that, or potentially bring out something like another portable console, or something more with VR. Because
Okay,
And
that's
in
something that
that
works.
case, then now I know that because I presume they just had like the big console and like the slightly less big console, but now it's like, from what is being suggested, the big console and then just the discless version of the big console. Yeah, I would definitely edge towards it being like, if the Xbox Series S is $299 and the PlayStation 5 normal is $499 and matches the Series X, then I'd expect PlayStation 5 digital to be like 400-ish, maybe like 420 to like
Nice.
380 to 420.
Nice. Yeah,
Well, I thought it was going to be a smaller version, but if it's just digital, then yeah.
I just wanted to comment on what you said about the 4K gaming. I think of all people, console players are more likely to want the 4K at 60 FPS because they
Well,
tend
that's the thing.
to be on the larger screens. Now, not necessarily all TVs can support that resolution, but I think a lot more people are going to want to jump up to
I
that.
saw a poll on Twitter X amount of time ago, can't remember, was like within like a month to a week, because that's how time is in lockdown, as you'll know.
Yeah.
Or not really lockdown anymore, grumble.
Yeah.
But it was basically a multiple like stage thing where it was like, what's more important to you in the next console generation? High frame rates, like 120 FPS, I think was the example they gave, right? High resolution, 4K at 60. And then like, I'm pretty sure that was like, there's a couple other options, but I genuinely can't remember what they were, and I can't speculate on what they were, so whatever. But then there was the next poll on top of that was, what do you currently own in your house, like anywhere?
Right.
Or what the stuff you have in your house, is it capable of 4K at 60, 120, or both, right?
Yeah.
And the winning in that poll, which obviously was online, where you're going to have more PC users currently, and you're going to have a
Yes.
very skewed bias, etc. The winners was people wanted 120 FPS, and obviously people had more high refresh rate monitors or TVs than they did
Yes.
4K stuff, which is what I would expect. But the thing is, I think because these consoles are really trying to compete with PCs, I think even if initially there's a lot of buzz around
Oh.
4K, I think give it a
I
year,
see.
because obviously most of the consoles now are there for quite a few years. I think high refresh rate is going to be the thing, right?
Definitely.
I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more high refresh rate gaming TVs and such. Possibly
Oh.
even AMD getting into that market, as they're
That
the
would
ones
be
obviously
kind of
make
gross,
most of the
but I'm
CPUs and
interested
GPUs.
to see it.
Like, maybe a potential future where people realize actually 4K is not as significant as they might think, and maybe they want to play this new cool Cold Warzone game that they've been playing for quite some time, but at 120 hertz on their new TV, and that becomes like the cool gamer console thing a few years down the line. I could definitely see that happening.
I personally can definitely see PlayStation going down the VR route again. I think they thought that their VR headset went kind of well. I personally feel like they could do that again. I don't know.
It's pretty bad.
It was pretty bad, but for like a
It
consumer
was
product,
bad for VR, like just as a VR product, but for what it was
yeah,
decent.
it would be interesting to see what they do.
How it existed.
Anyway, shall we end that for the?
Tactical's about to wet himself if we
Yeah.
don't get a look at these PS5 prices.
I will piss off if they because they've done like 3 reveals so far. The first one literally going detailed tech. I've watched
Good.
all of them on stream as
God,
well.
the live chat is awful, by the way.
So yeah.
Oh god, where's the fucking link, bros? Come
Oh,
on.
I'll link
Oh.
you. But
Oh, cheers.
yes.
Okay.
So is anything you guys would like to say? Promote
I
whatnot?
think we should promote the Clip It podcast. Now available on Twitch, YouTube, Spotify.
Spotify
Well,
not confirmed.
kind of Spotify.
Yeah, I will keep you guys up to date on that.
Yeah, hopefully, if all goes to plan, we should be available on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple
Yep.
Podcasts, and other podcast sites.
Amazon Prime, apparently.
So hopefully, but that's not a fact yet. Just hopefully.
But no,
The only other things I'd like to promote, just very shortly,
wear a
is
mask.
that the British Medical Association 3 hours ago has now officially ruled that trans and non-binary people should be given the right to self-declare their own gender,
Oh,
which is a
sick.
huge step for trans and non-binary people, myself included. Hooray! Because it's good to have the BMA, like the British Medical Association. Like, it's not a LGBTQIA rights organization. They are a medical organization at heart. Say no, actually, the science backs this up. This should be a thing. And sort of in complementary news, a employment tribunal that was ongoing. And as you know anything about law, court case rulings and tribunal rulings can often effectively create sort of pseudo laws. In that if that's been ruled before in court, that's kind of the way you'd expect it to be ruled again. Has ruled that non-binary and gender fluid people are protected under the Equality Act. So that's also great
That's
news.
decent. Yeah.
That's all I'd like to promote. Just
That's
happy
that.
day feels.
No, that is a happy ending to the stream. Thank you very much, you two. Thank you very much, you two, for a wonderful stream for a wonderful podcast. Hopefully, this does make the Spotify lists. It would be nice. But yeah, no, I do appreciate you two coming in, and thank you very much for watching. We're going to carry on watching this reveal. If you're here still live, I hope you do. I'm interested just to see prices and if they come up with any more games. I doubt they will, but you never know.
Jack and Dexter.
But yeah, never mind. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you in the next podcast. Ta-ra.
Ta-ra. Ta-ra.